Welcome to the bottom line, everyone. I'm Kat Shear. Today we've got Scott Schweitzer and Brian Friend on to preview the next live in-person CrossFit semifinal event happening this weekend. It's in Minnesota, and we're talking about the Granite Games. So a little history. Granite has historically been held on the campus of St. Cloud University, about 90 minutes outside of Minneapolis. They typically have a couple indoor and outdoor venues, individuals, teams, multiple divisions, teenagers, masters age groups, all of that. This year, we've got a new location, a new blueprint, and a new event organizer. So Granite's going to be held in Viking Lakes. That's home of the Minnesota Vikings in a town called Eagan, which is right outside of Minneapolis. As an official CrossFit semifinal event, they'll qualify 5 men, 5 women, 5 teams to the CrossFit Games, along with 3 men and women who will compete at a last chance qualifier. This is also the first year it's being run by Loud and Live. So I'm really excited to see what the breadth of their experience is going to bring to the table this year as well. Let's get started. So Brian, question for you. I heard that the events might all be outside this weekend. Is that true?
Yes, it appears that that's the case. It's going to be primarily taking place on the football field there at the facility where the Vikings practice, and it's going to be really hot.
Yeah, I think it's in the 90s all weekend.
Gross.
Yeah, should be 90 plus. So hopefully all the athletes bring their gloves for handstand walks.
Good point.
So, who are the usual suspects that we have in this event, Brian?
Honestly, it's a little bit different than a lot of the other semis. On the men's side, you're probably looking at Chandler Smith and Saxon Panchik as like the top dogs there. Both of them are kind of regular 4th, 5th, 6th place finishers in, semifinal or sanctional style events. But I'm looking at those two guys as guys who need to kind of dominate this competition. And on the women's side, I think it's kind of a strange dichotomy. You have a couple of veterans in Christy Aramo and Alessandra Pacelli who should do well in just about any setting. They've both been top 10 at the games before and are very consistent. But you also have, obviously, Mallory O'Brien and Emma Carey, who have been incredibly impressive throughout the season. I know there's a lot of people, including myself, who are very excited to see them compete live against Games athletes. And I everything I've seen from them, I have no reason to believe that they're going to struggle this weekend. I think they'll do really well. So I'm kind of think those 4 girls and those 2 guys are like the expectation for me, at least, is that they'll do very well.
Do we know anything about teams?
Yeah, definitely. On the team side, there's some, a lot of people are talking about Mitch Stevenson and Carrie Beamer's team. I love it because they did so well on the online stages. But you got to keep in mind that this is a raw team of individual athletes who doesn't have the same team experience that a lot of the teams competing this weekend do have. And the team programming is very good, very well-rounded and diverse. And you'll have to have a lot of synchronicity, communication, timing, and the ability to obviously work with the worm. So I think the favorites are the Move Fast Lift Heavy team led by Christian Harris, Will Carter, and everything's off the fly today, so I don't have any stats in front of me. Brittany's on that team and a girl named Katie Christian. I think Brittany Morella. So they were the favorites in my mind. The Move Fast Lift Heavy, Ocean State's Finest should do well. I still think I Love It will do well, but it's actually a pretty deep teams field. I think that you're going to be very close battles for the 4th and 5th spots throughout the weekend.
Great. So we'll switch gears. We'll talk a little bit about programming. I know last week at MAC, we all love the 1 rep max lift. That 10 rounds of 3 clean and jerks and 3 burpees over the bar was really a crowd pleaser as well. What kind of workouts are we going to see this weekend? And anyone in particular you think that will be sort of electric?
Well, electric in the dynamic sense of the snatch or a 3-minute sprint. They have a 1 rep max snatch again. The format's a little different. If my understanding is correct, they'll have 6 minutes and as many attempts as they want, which is, you have to have a different game plan and strategy for the max style. Then you can afford to be a little bit more loose in your planning if you have 6 minutes and unlimited lifts. So I still think we'll see some big lifts, and people, of course, will love that. Granite Games is historically a strength-biased programming, and they know that, and they've kind of adhered to that. If you look at the totality of the workouts, there are 10 strength implements, 6 gymnastics, and 4 monostructural, and 3 of the 4 monostructural, honestly, are basically irrelevant the way that they're programmed. It's like a buy-in 30-calorie row. There's a couple of ski erg 30 calories, but around them are 30 deficit handstand push-ups and 60 meters of handstand walking that's going to dominate that event. So And then one of them is literally just a sprint to the finish. I still counted it because I was like trying to get some monostructural implements in there. So it's a strength heavy program, but there will be some fun events. There's a kind of complicated version of a 2-2-2-3 interval that has some ring muscle ups, heavy-ish squat cleans, bar facing burpees, and then some work with the torque sled. So if you're looking for a workout that I always try to identify one workout that's going to be maybe the closest indicator of how people will end up by the end of the weekend. And I think that workout is going to be where the best athletes really have a chance to separate themselves from the field.
So let's talk a little bit about that torque tank. So we saw it last weekend, first time in competition. Have you gotten any feedback from athletes about, the different techniques that they use to push it? We saw people sort of using it like a sled. We had people's sort of shoulders and arms like right on top of it to press it. What do you know about that?
Based on watching, I felt like the shoulder lean into it was kind of the best strategy for most, especially if any other part of the workout involves grip, which this workout will with some ring muscle ups and some squat cleans. But what I've really have learned from talking to a couple athletes is that the torque tank, although it eliminates the disparity or complaints about the inequality of a sled on a field and different surfaces, it also doesn't really reward raw power. There's actually kind of a sweet spot. So you want to push it hard, but not too hard. And once you get into that right zone, then you can kind of keep it moving pretty steady. But that's an implement that very few athletes have used. So a lot of them are kind of figuring that out on the fly. I'll be curious to see if the athletes handle it better, having either watched or talked to athletes who used it last week.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Go ahead, Scott.
We also heard that you need to keep the wheels on the ground. If you hit it too hard, too fast, the front wheels come up off the ground and then it starts bouncing. And that's something we heard kind of backstage last week.
Yeah, and that could be a product of the surface it's on too. It was on a rubber floor, and now it sounds like it's going to be probably on grass or turf. So that
I think they're laying a floor on top of the turf. But
okay.
I'm not 100% on that.
Okay, that can make a difference too. And in typical CrossFit fashion, we've got a dramatic marching overhead lunge at the very end, which I always think is pretty classic for the drama. And also there's a devil's press in here. So this is the first time that, I know this isn't like an official CrossFit event, but in a lot of ways it is. And that movement has sort of made it into the ecosystem finally. What do you think about those?
Any kind of race in the final event where there's a progression down the field towards the finish line is great. I think that it's, a good idea from a programming standpoint to have something like that. It just tells the story really nicely. And it gives the commentators and the MCs a chance to tell the story as it's happening and they're approaching the finish line. Devil's press is obviously a super challenging movement in general. I think the biggest challenge there is how do you judge the movement standard? And since we haven't seen it yet in a sanctioned event that CrossFit's held, this is going to be our first chance to get it. So athletes, both on the teams and individual sides, need to be paying close attention to make sure they're adhering to the standards. And then the judges and the media and everyone who's covering it also should be, try to be as aware as they can as that, so that they can, inform everyone else about what they're actually looking for in that movement, where there isn't necessarily a clear, definitive end range of motion as of now.
Yeah. Have you guys all done devil's presses before? I assume you have, right?
Oh.
Are you a through the feet at the bottom and come up, sort of like a kettlebell swing, or do you bring them along the sides of your legs and bring them up?
Through the legs for sure. I jump pretty far forward in my burpee and then I get some momentum from there. But if you're trying it out for the first time, you need to really brace your core and your posterior chain when you're driving those kettlebells or dumbbells overhead.
I'm a through the legs as well. That's where I generate my most power, is the center of my gravity, and so yeah.
Yeah, I'm the odd man out. I always drag them to the sides of my legs. I have a pretty narrow stance when I come up to my burpee. My hamstrings are pretty flexible, so I just kind of drag them along the side and then stand them up. I've tried it the other way, and I don't like it. I'm the outlier. So, all right, so that's programming. Let's talk a little bit about how we're covering this weekend. So I'm going to be home doing some family stuff. I know you guys are both going. We'll start with you, Scott. How are you going to be covering the events, and what can people expect?
So we are going to be doing daily wrap-ups every day, and I'm going to get in touch with you in Delaware so we can do the voiceovers on our daily wrap-ups. We're going to add some video footage this week, more comprehensive video footage, just to kind of add a little extra. And then our popular 3 questions we did really well last week. We had a lot of viewers, so we're going to do that again backstage and get some input from the athletes.
Cool. What about you, Brian?
Working on the back end for the event and doing daily recaps for the morning chalk up.
Perfect. Okay. So one final question to the group here. We're going to tip our hat to the rookie who took MAC by storm last weekend. That would be Jason Hopper. And I'm going to ask you both. So who are your top men and women rookie picks? So think about athletes that maybe we're not typically talking about, but who could very well make a splash this weekend. And Brian, we'll start with you.
Sure. Yeah. On the men's side, I like a guy named Taylor Self. He competed at the same off-season competition as Jason Hopper did last fall in South Carolina and did very well there. Jason won the competition. I think Taylor took 4th, but I've talked to the competition director and he's very high on Taylor, saying watch out for him, look out for him. He said the same thing about Hopper. So I'm kind of trusting him on this one. But Taylor Self is a guy I think most people don't know about that should know about. And on the girls' side, I apologize if I mispronounced the name, but Nicole McGenny, I believe she took her husband's name, and she actually, Tommy informed me of this yesterday, she actually competed in the Reykjavik Challenge, but she got injured there and was forced to withdraw, so we didn't get a real chance to see her. But based on her responses in the kind of athlete survey prior to the event, it seems like the programming is very good for her. She placed 31st in the quarterfinal, so she's kind of someone that I'm excited to see this weekend.
Scott?
Yeah, on the men's side, I'm going to go with Drew Wayman. I know that he has been around a little bit, but he has missed out on his chance at going to the games several times, and this may be his chance in this field. Back in 2018, when I was judging at regionals, he took the world by storm and was leading over Matt Frazier in those regionals after day 1. And this outdoor event may fit him much better than the traditional indoor regionals type event. I'm going to take the easy way out and pick one of the teenagers. I'm going to pick Emma Carey to surprise the world. Maybe pull the upset this weekend. I don't think anything's going to rattle her. She seems to have the mental game to hang in there, and that's who I'm going with.
Solid choice. Great. So I'm going to go on the men's side with Nick Matthew. So he's the GM and owner of CrossFit Minnetonka. We saw him last in the 2018 regionals, so it's been a minute. I like him because he's a local guy. Just so happens that he's been working with Shane and Nick lately with the Proven programming, and those guys have a pretty good track record of producing some solid athletes lately. So I'm going to go with Nick as one to watch this weekend. And then on the women's side, I'm going with Rachel Vondrich. So side note, Rachel got married last week. Congrats to her. You may also know her as Rachel Schreiber. So Rachel's part of the U.S. Army Warrior Fitness team. She's super balanced, super consistent athlete. I've seen her make some huge gains over the last 18 months. And I hear she's been doing a little bit of training with her friends at Mayhem, which can't hurt as well. So I'll be on the lookout for Rachel, the newlywed, to make some waves this weekend as well. So now with the bottom line, guys, there is one thing for certain with live competition, and that is that anything can happen. A seasoned veteran can make a costly mistake. A rookie could have their weekend of a lifetime, and you just really never know. So we're going to have to just sit back and watch and see what happens. That'll do it for us. On behalf of the Morning Chalk Up, Scott Schweitzer, Brian Friend, I'm Kat Shear. This is The Bottom Line, and we'll see you next time.